We're getting closer to the results from that Tesla shareholder vote. Here to help us break down the latest and what to expect, we're bringing in Nancy Tengler, CEO and CIO of Laffer Tengler Investments, and Lou Basenese, President and Chief Market Strategist at MDB Capital Holdings. Thanks to you both for being here. And just to be clear where both of you are situated, Nancy is a Tesla shareholder. She has voted yes. Lou, not a fan of Tesla shares, doesn't hold the stock, I believe. In fact, it was the subject of goodbye or goodbye.
It was. I'm a fan of Nancy, though, so no ill will here.
Of course. No, it's not personal. Lou, you're here with us in studio. Get to you first.
Sure.
As you look at this whole drama unfolding, does it make you more convinced that you don't want to hold Tesla shares?
Yeah, I try and avoid drama in all aspects of my life. I think drama is the right word for this because, look, this is the first time in my life I will empathize or sympathize with Musk because he's having to renegotiate a pay package that was already approved. I mean, you shouldn't be tried for a crime twice. You shouldn't have to renegotiate a pay package twice. And at the end of the day, shareholders, it's in their best interest to vote for this because they have their principal at work and at risk. If Musk isn't incentivized, then their capital is at risk. So I think whether you think it's egregious or too generous of an offer, it doesn't matter. It's a pay-for-performance package. He has to deliver on the share price. What's happened in the past doesn't matter. It's what happens in the future for Musk. He's willing to put that on the line.
Well, actually, in this particular case, it's only about what happened in the past. He already hit most of the benchmarks.
Right.
He has to now he can't exercise his options for another 5 years. But even if the stock went nowhere from today, as I understand it, hopefully I'm understanding it correctly, even if it didn't go anywhere today, he still would cash out big in 5 years from now.
Ask any CEO if they feel confident they could hold their stock price stable for 5 years. That's a feat in its own, especially when you think about the market that they're in. You have declining sales, declining demand, declining margins. That's a Herculean task, to say the least, to be able to think you could do that for 5 years. Let them try it. Otherwise, it's nothing, nothing lost, nothing gained.
Yeah. Nancy, I want to bring you here as well. You are a Tesla shareholder, Nancy. As I understand it, you voted, for this pay package. How come, Nancy?
Well, I think for the reasons you've been discussing. I mean, Josh, he earned it. These were ludicrous targets at the time they were set, and he achieved them and surpassed them. And so here's a guy who's made a lot of money for shareholders over the years. I think it's interesting that the individual investors are the ones that kind of carried this over the line. And I think they understand that not only, has he changed the value of the company, but he's changing society. So this is somebody who deserves to be taken seriously. We've heard concerns from some who say, well, it gives one shareholder too much control. Well, you tell me who has the voting control at Meta and Google in those two share classes. The only way you can express your opinion is to vote with your feet, which is what investors did when Mark Zuckerberg pivoted to the metaverse. So there's a lot of irony in this for me. And last thing I'll say is, we don't really sit back and critique professional athletes' pay packages. Let's take LeBron James, who's earned almost $500 million in his career. Is that too much? Is it not enough?
Well, but we don't invest alongside LeBron James. We don't share in the profits from LeBron James. This is someone who you're investing in, and so you should have a say in what they make because you're the shareholder. So, Nancy, what I want to ask you, though, as you look at this, even if you think he deserves it, he hits the targets, et cetera, what do you say about the critics who say the board is too close to him, they're rubber stamping what he does? I mean, there's a whole host of various other allegations about his behavior. There was just the Journal article about SpaceX and some of his behavior with women on staff there. How do you reckon with all of that, even if you think that he hit the targets and he deserves the money?
I don't think that comes into the equation, Julie. I'm sorry. I'm not approving of that behavior. I think we've got a long list of folks that can get in line in front and behind Elon on that. The issue is whether or not there was a contract, in my view. Did he deliver on his objectives? He did.
But was the contract entered in good faith if the board is so close to him that they couldn't sort of see it in a clear-headed fashion?
That's a different issue. I think that the courts should take that up with the board. But if we have courts now second guessing, is the dividend payout too high? That the board said, is the share buyback program too big? I think the deal was done. He delivered, and whether or not they were too close or not, they're certainly much less conflicted than they used to be. But that may not be the right benchmark. But I think this is someone who has not only developed technologies that are really changing the world, but has delivered profitability. And for many years, no one cared about profitability at Tesla. And now he's actually delivering. Earnings growth is going to reaccelerate next year, free cash flow. So these other issues to me are kind of straw men. And I think you have to, as an investor, you have to take the financial aspects and the fundamentals of the company at heart. If I had to pass judgment on every CEO, I'd probably own 2 stocks.
Lou, I want to bring you back in here as well. One thing that interests me about this conversation when we talk about Musk is I can think of very few CEOs who are tied so closely to the company. How foundational is he? Because our buddy Dan Ives over at Wedbush, Dan will always say, hey, Musk is Tesla, Tesla is Musk. Is that how you see it?
I totally agree with that. I mean, you used to think that Steve Jobs was Apple, but you had Tim Cook in the shadows that was really learning the business and could implement and execute.
And it turns out Tim Cook kind of Mount Rushmore American business.
Absolutely, but does Musk have that protege underneath?
Who's the bench?
I don't believe so. If he did, he wouldn't be 3-timing at 3 companies as the leader. So I think they're inextricably linked. I agree with Nancy here that we should get over the concentration of voting power or ownership. That's symptomatic of every major tech company with Zuckerberg. But it's really the cure for all ills here is a higher stock price. You won't hear a lot of this noise and chatter if Tesla's performing.
In other words, the fact that it's gotten shelled like this is part of the issue.
I agree. Yeah, I think that's absolutely part of it.
Okay.
Well, so Nancy, let's talk about that then. Are we going to get a higher stock price? I mean, the stock's popping today on this, but fundamentally, the business has some issues.
Yeah. Well, it's trading like an EV company, and EV demand is slowing. The margins are shrinking. We've seen this with every great product. I mean, go back to Coach if you want to with handbags. As soon as the margins became well known, they had a number of competitors. So the thing to me that's attractive about the company is the mega pack business, which is the electric utility grade battery packs. That's growing faster and is more profitable than the car business. Autonomous is also of interest. I live in Phoenix half the year, and I can't go a quarter of a mile without seeing a Waymo. I think this is going to be the wave of the future. And then all of the AI initiatives that he will now stay under, if the court ratifies this, by the way, it still has to be ratified by the Delaware court, but that will stay under the Tesla umbrella. And I think that's where the future value of the firm is. So don't expect this stock to continue to appreciate like it is today. This is a 3 to 5 year time horizon holding, but I think the technology is there. And yeah, I agree with Lou. There are some succession issues. There have always been succession issues, and there have always been board issues. So I think that is stipulated, and I agree with all of you, but there's still money to be made in this stock.
Lou, I'll end with you here. Yeah. Put aside the shareholder meeting. Let's just kind of pull on Nancy's argument. Just talk about the fundamentals. How do you see it near intermediate term?
I mean, I look big picture. Fundamentally, every new technology goes through the same adoption cycle. You get early adopters, the first 20% of market share, and then you got to cross that chasm into mainstream adoption. And what we're seeing, price points an issue, reliability is an issue. I just don't see Tesla leading that charge across the chasm. I think you see bigger competitors in the automotive space that have a proven track record of operating longevity with margins at scale that are going to take over and dominate the next wave of growth in the EV market. But that being said, never count out Elon. He's a bit irrational, he can cast a vision, which I think is what Nancy's alluding to. There's AI, there's autonomous driving. There's a lot of things that could lead to future share price appreciation and business fundamental strength. But right now, I just don't see it. So.
Well, and given, picking up on that sort of sometimes irrational behavior, capriciousness, what have you, Nancy, how confident are you that even if the pay package gets approved, even if Delaware lets it stand, that he keeps the AI at Tesla? Or could something else piss him off? And he says, guess what? I'm going to do something, pull something else away from Tesla.
Well, I didn't know we could say that on the air, Julie.
I don't know either, but I just said
you can
it.
now,
So there
Nancy.
you go.
Listen, I owned the stock many years ago before there were earnings on a relative price to sales ratio basis. It was trading at $180 a share. I don't know what that is post split, but this was when Elon was sleeping on the floor of the factory. He was smoking whatever with Charles Rogan on the Charles Rogan show and drinking whiskey at the same time. And I looked at this and I said, this is, and by the way, the turnover then was much greater and the board was even less independent. And so I sold my shares and I got a double. And the stock went up 6-fold. So I disagree with Lou rarely, but I will disagree on this. This company has the best margins, and he's been reducing the margins voluntarily to take share. Free cash flow is about to accelerate. Earnings growth is about to accelerate. And he has the vision, and he will figure out how to converge all these technologies. I'm not, this isn't a personality contest for me. There's a lot of CEOs and companies that I own the stock and I don't actually like the CEO or how they operate, but they're good at their business. And as an investor, that's my job for my clients.